Captain America, Shield, Iron Man. Don't look at me like that.
I love it when you talk superheroes.
Tip of the tongue, teeth in the lips.
You're listening to the Social Geek Scene podcast, your scene for all the geek things.
Hey everyone, welcome back. As always, I am Sam.
And I'm Jeremiah.
And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about the recently released Marvel Cinematic movie, Captain America Civil War. And to help us talk about the movie, we have a special guest with us today.
Yes, this is actually my cousin, Jason Harris. He's a gamer, a social geek scene. He's in our social geek scene. And he's a big Spidey fan. And your favorite Super Smash Brothers character?
Yoshi.
Sam, what's your character?
I'm not going to lie, I'm a Kirby guy.
You would be a Kirby. I'm a Pikachu guy. I can rule with Pikachu.
Yeah, I'm Yoshi all the way.
If Captain America and Iron Man were playing Smash Brothers, what characters would they be?
I feel like Iron Man would be Samus. I mean,
Yeah,
honestly.
yeah, that's a good one.
And Captain America would be Link.
Okay.
I think that's the best
And we all
comparison.
know who would win that.
Just to prepare you guys, if you haven't seen the movie, please beware. We are going to be talking about spoilers in today's episode. So just be aware of that. But let's go ahead and just dive in.
Let's do it.
First off, I mean, this was a great movie. There are a lot of high expectations going into this. This is the first time we've ever seen. It wasn't an Avengers movie, but there were so many characters. And this movie was kind of the culmination of everything that's kind of happened with the Avengers and their battles and all that kind of stuff. And so kind of what we're seeing is the aftermath of all these battles that have taken place. We've seen in the first Avengers movie with the alien attack in New York. You have Hydra in Captain America 2 and that battle that took place with all the helicarriers. And then with Avengers 2 in Age of Ultron, we saw Sokovia, that whole city, country kind of being destroyed, and a lot of people were killed.
Yeah.
And so we haven't really seen the Avengers deal with the aftermath of, you know, their actions that have taken place. So we're at this point of the government saying, hey, you guys just can't keep going and doing what you want when you want, fighting these battles.
Exactly.
You have to have some oversight. And that's kind of where this movie starts us off at.
The government giving them, saying, hey, something needs to change here because this isn't working. There's massive billions of dollars of destruction and ultimately people's lives are being lost. We need to make a change. So then they introduce, what is it called? The Sokovia?
The Sokovia Accords.
Yeah.
Which is being signed by over 100 and something countries with the United Nations. So that's a lot of like people saying, hey, we don't like what the Avengers are doing. Like, we appreciate that you saved the world a couple of times. And they even said that's a debt we cannot repay, but you guys need a little bit of oversight. And so we actually have General Ross, who is now Secretary of State Ross, who we saw in The Incredible Hulk, kind of step in as the ambassador or the person kind of relaying the message to the team. Like, all right, sign this or you guys aren't going to like what's going to happen.
Right. Yeah, it immediately kind of says, hey, there's tension in the story now because now it's saying, well, we can do this or we can not do this. So that kind of breaks out a debate with the Avengers and they're saying like, hey, what are we going to do, guys? So, Jace, what do you think about like them being presented with that idea and they have to like kind of choose a side?
Well, I think the first question we need to ask is, you know, is this a little bit too late in the game to bring this stuff up? I mean, we've clearly dealt with a couple different saving the world already, and we know that while we're saving the world, there's this in the back of our heads. We know that there's going to be some sort of collateral, and while it is sad to think about, there is this sort of greater good going on, and so I guess my question to you guys is how do you think it's a little bit too late, or do you think that at this point in the game it's kind of like why would they bring this stuff up now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that is a good question. I think they've been in each kind of movie, they've been building it like kind of step by step, because the Avengers just came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And when they were formed. So they're fighting aliens and everything's crazy and buildings are going down and people are dying. And then the same thing keeps happening. Mm-hmm. So I think the government's just kind of playing catch up. They're kind of like, what is this new world, which is the MCU, and they're just playing catch up. So it could be late in the game. I feel like they did make little references in the other movies with like some media dialogue happening, like lock them all up, they're crazy, and then the other side is, oh, they're heroes, they saved us all, and there's little kids like making paper masks of Iron Man and stuff.
Right.
So
I do think what was different about Age of Ultron is that this was a problem that was caused by the Avengers. Tony created Ultron. Mm-hmm. And so I think this movie, Civil War, takes place after the events of Ultron. That's kind of where we see the team at, is right after that movie. But that was a villain that was created by the Avengers. So I think that's like, okay, we can't just let you do what you want, because now you're causing problems more than you're helping people.
Yeah. And with Tony Stark's background, you also have Steve Rogers' background with dealing with Hydra and like infiltrating the government. And he's always kind of been against the government, but kind of like working with it, but not like loving that relationship, because it's kind of stung him in the past, especially with Bucky. So you kind of see like these two backstories actually coming to the same point, but also like growing apart after, they have to present them with the Accord.
Right. And we kind of see Tony, which in past movies you wouldn't have expected him to take this move, but after Age of Ultron, he feels responsible for what happened. And it's like, maybe I need to give up a little bit of control, because people died because of what happened. And so I'm willing to give up, the autonomy of us running our own team and whatever. But then we see Steve on the other side of that. It's like, yeah, people die, but that doesn't mean we stop doing, or we give up control, or we let other people tell us what to do. We have to take responsibility for our own actions and keep moving forward. Sometimes not everyone makes it out alive. And that comes with the job.
Exactly. And I think they did a pretty good job of delving into all those different themes, because which I think we're going to actually get to here in a minute. This idea of kind of choosing sides. Literally, not only is the Avengers going to have to choose whether they want to align with the government and give up their identities, but they're also going to have to decide if they do not want to do that, they are officially going to be viewed as vigilantes. And so not only are they choosing this side, but with the Captain America and Iron Man sort of maybe fronting this whole thing, us as an audience, we have to kind of decide like, well, who's doing the right thing here?
Yeah.
And I think that while maybe it was a little, like, I think they kind of fumbled around in the beginning. I feel like once we got to this point in the story, I feel like things were starting to click and move along pretty nicely.
Yeah. So who do we think was on the right side?
I think from the get-go, I was on Captain's side. Let's not forget we are watching a Captain America movie.
Was his movie, yeah.
And while I maybe had a lot of maybe I felt like it was going to be possible because there were so many characters in the film that it would maybe detract from the story. I was reminded a few times during the film that, like, yes, we are watching Captain America's side of this movie, and I think it definitely sympathizes with Captain's side, or at least it's telling his side of the story. So I would say, at least for me, I was running with Captain the whole duration of the movie, and but I thought they did do a good job of at least explaining Tony's side. I almost felt, I don't know about you guys, but they kind of really made him out to be this antagonist. Like, I mean, even like, you know, as an audience, or maybe from Captain's side, that Iron Man was kind of this problem, like in the Avengers. Like, he was maybe even, well, not quite out a villain, but he was definitely opposing Captain for the majority of the movie. And I would definitely say that it felt like at least from Captain's side, that Iron Man was definitely this sort of villain type character in the film. I mean, what do you think?
I think I would actually choose to side with Tony Stark and Iron Man, and here's why. I think the Avengers have never had a battle per se with something good. It's always been like fighting aliens, so it's always been like white or black. Like, there's bad guys, we're good guys, we're gonna fight them. This is like the first time like a gray area decision has been presented to the Avengers, and it's the government's trying to meet this compromise. And I think Tony Stark's coming from a place where he's messed up a little, and he's kind of like saying, okay, I'm down. I've messed up. I'm sorry. I'm down to do whatever it takes to keep the Avengers together. And I think in his mind, he's just doing not what he wants to do, but he's taking the best outcome. Because Tony Stark is a genius. And I think he has thought through all of those things. And he says, if we go against the government, you know, that's one more enemy we're creating. Like, why would we do that?
Right. And also for at least Iron Man, we had that scene with him and this woman as she was about to go on an elevator, and she was quick to remind him of because of his actions, she lost her son. And so you could tell right out of the gates that this little event affected Iron Man. I mean, you could tell he was wearing it. Yeah. When they had the big meeting with all the characters.
Yeah. Sam, you going Cap or Iron Man?
I'm definitely on Cap's side on this one. And there was a very pivotal scene, you know, after they get presented with the Sokovia Accords, he gets a message saying that Peggy Carter has finally passed away. And so he has to go to her funeral. And then her niece, which is Sharon Carter, Agent 13, which we find out, kind of talks about, you know, Peggy's philosophy and influence on her as a founding member of S.H.I.E.L.D. and as an agent. And Cap, I think this was a moment where Cap solidifies his stance, where she says something along the lines of, compromise where you can, but where you can't, tell them, I'm not moving, you have to move. And you have to stand your ground. And I think that's where Cap's like, yeah, I cannot sign this document. I cannot give control over to these politicians with agendas, which he has dealt with before, which led to really bad consequences. So, you know, I think the Avengers are a group of people that the government, I mean, I think you're saying this is a little late in the game. They just didn't know how to respond to metahumans, powerful people with abilities like this. And so now they're trying to get a little bit of control, but we now live in a world that actually Nick Fury said in Avengers 1 is the world is filling up with people who cannot be matched. And the equal response to that is people who have extraordinary abilities like the Avengers. And so at this point, we can't take a step back and give control over to people who really don't understand what to do. As Cap said, the safest hands are still our own.
Right.
So I'm definitely Team Cap, and with his decision, and I feel like Tony's response was a little bit of, I messed up. I don't want to lose this team. I don't want us to be labeled as the bad guys now. So I'm going to sign and try and keep this team together the best that I can. And I understand a little bit of why he did that, but I do think he's operating out of regret and fear with that decision.
Yeah. And I feel like when Peggy passes away for Captain, it's like Captain is in this new world, but his past is like fading away. So he's
Right.
kind of like losing himself. Like the only thing he really has is Bucky from his past.
Right.
So that's kind of like the one thing he's still holding on to.
Mm-hmm. And so now at this point in the movie, there's a summit which all the countries with the United Nations are coming together to sign the accords, and they want the Avengers to be there to sign. We only really see Black Widow there. But for the first time, we see the King of Wakanda, T'Chaka, and in the MCU, and they kind of come out of, from behind the scenes. From Age of Ultron, all that vibranium, which comes from Wakanda, was stolen and was used to help, destroy Sokovia. So it's like, okay, we can no longer stand by and just watch this happen. We have to get into the game, and kind of promotes this Sokovia Accords. And then we meet T'Challa, his son, the Prince of Wakanda, a.k.a. the Black Panther, who, my goodness, Chadwick Boseman just did a phenomenal job. I wasn't sure what to expect about Black Panther, but he had such a commanding presence, a very kingly identity, which he's royalty, and he's, we don't really know that. I didn't know that much about Black Panther.
Right. I don't think any of us did, really. I mean,
Yeah, it was. I was trying to study up a little bit on him, but he has a great killer backstory, and it just works so well in this movie with everyone else. And Marvel's really found a way to like introduce a brand new character in a short amount of time and make you just kind of fall in love immediately.
Right.
Like in 2 or 3 scenes, you're like, oh yeah, this guy's my new favorite superhero.
and so can we just talk about how they introduce Black Panther? One of the many pretty fantastic action scenes in this film involved Captain America finding Bucky and warning him that there's people coming for him, and we're actually things quickly escalate, and you have Bucky pretty much taking out like this entire army, like down this flight of stairs. I particularly remember him using his arm to kind of pull the
railing?
the arm rail, and like jump down like a couple flights. Like that was pretty awesome. But
It was almost as cool as Daredevil season 2's fight sequence down the entire stairwell.
it was very, very, very cool. And so as Bucky manages to escape this building after taking out so many guys, I think this is really where I started to really appreciate Bucky. I feel like he's such an underrated character, and I'm glad they got to use him a lot in this film. But he's pretty much like, he was like running past these cars, like he's running faster than these cars, and Captain America is right on his trail, and then this figure just comes out of nowhere, and obviously it's the Black Panther, but I think it was the first time where we actually got to see some of his moves, and very, very cool character, very agile, and you saw they had these claws that came out.
I think the vibranium claws.
Yeah.
And his suit.
Bullets bouncing off
Right,
of
his
him.
suit's made out of
Yes.
vibranium, so it's bulletproof. And he was very acrobatic, very Panther-like in his in his moves. And I mean, it was a very different type of character.
Yeah.
but fit in so well. And it was great to see new kinds of fighting styles and action sequences. And they first kind of started fighting on that rooftop, and Cap's like, all right, who's this guy? I'm going to go find out. And they're all chasing each other.
Right.
And then he takes off his helmet at the end of the chase, and it's Your Highness, you know. But I mean, the reason why Black Panther was chasing him was because there was a bombing at the summit where his father was killed,
Right.
and the media was kind of showing that it was Bucky who did it, which isn't true.
Right. But that does drive the rest of the
Right, yeah,
film,
right. And-
especially Black Panther's kind of
Entire,
revenge
yeah.
to avenge his father. Sort of, he's going after Bucky, which would take us to this sort of, at this point in the game, clearly everyone has to choose sides, and what we get to see is this pretty great sort of montage of this assembling of heroes, and while it might not be like what you think, it's actually the heroes that are choosing to side with the government, mainly siding with Tony Stark, and then the heroes deciding not to, and mainly siding with the Captain. And I think we get to see a really great sort of assembling of a team at this point in the movie, and that was one of my favorite parts of the film, actually.
And kind of at this point in the movie, they do capture Bucky, Captain, and even Black Panther. War Machine shows up, and it's like, we're taking you in. You're a criminal now, Cap. Great job. You're really doing yourself a service here. But now we see the kind of an introduction of the behind-the-scenes villain of the movie, Helmut Zemo, who's from the comics, Baron Zemo, who's a Captain America villain. But he kind of, you see along the way that this guy is on a mission, and he's trying to find out stuff about the Winter Soldier program that Bucky is a part of, and that there's a way to control the Winter Soldier using certain words that kind of brainwashes them and puts them under their control. And there's a reason why he's doing this. Apparently, I don't know if we want to go into that part. We'll maybe save that for later. But he kind of sneaks in and uses this mind control thing on Bucky. Then Bucky goes wild, and everyone's fighting Bucky, and then Cap finally fights him a little bit, gets him, knocks him out, gets him out of there. And so now you see the team, them finally separating, and now it's in recruiting mode.
Yeah.
Right.
I love when Tony Stark goes to recruit Spider-Man.
We have the introduction of Spider-Man for the first time in the MCU.
That was like the coolest thing ever. So, Jace, your thoughts on Spidey?
Well, you guys know that I love Spider-Man. I enjoyed reading many of the comic books over the years, and I really enjoyed the Tobey Maguire trilogy, even the third one, which had a little bit of missteps. I generally enjoyed them, and I would even say that Spider-Man 2 is one of the best comic book movies I've ever seen still. So I was really excited when they introduced Andrew Garfield for the new reboot of Spider-Man, and I think he did a really great job. I think you got some of that younger, skateboarding, a little bit of an edgier Peter Parker in those films, and I loved Emma Stone as Gwen Stacy, and I particularly loved The Amazing Spider-Man 2 because they pulled so much from one of my favorite comic books ever, which is Spider-Man Blue by Jeff Loeb and Tim Sale. And I thought they just integrated that into the movie really good, even though that movie did have some things I had to gripe about, mainly Electro, which was, it could have. Jamie Foxx was like good and simultaneously bad in it, but anyway, we're not here to talk about that Spider-Man. We are now talking about the third movie incarnation of Spider-Man. And I've got to be honest, guys, I was really I had some reservations, and I did like Andrew Garfield, and I thought it was maybe kind of a missed opportunity to fully flesh out his character by only doing 2 movies. But going into Civil War and knowing that we're finally going to see the new Spider-Man, we saw the trailer which came out shortly before the film, and that's where we got to see the first Spider-Man in action. And so
Under
we know
ruse.
under ruse, and so we really got to see that this new take on Spider-Man is he's much younger. He's still in high school, and he has a much classic style suit, and he kind of has like this maybe even innocence about him, and so knowing all these things and going into it, and knowing that we're actually going to get this before his actual full length film. I thought that all things considered, I really liked him. And I was actually kind of glad that in this universe, Spider-Man's already been web slinging for a while. When Iron Man does go to recruit him, they show a couple clips of him swinging around the city, and Spider-Man already has this kind of makeshift suit he's been donning for a while, and which was, I don't know if you guys caught, like, I thought it was kind of funny, the goggles that he had. Apparently hinting at one of his
Spidey sense.
superpowers. Apparently his spider senses can get so crazy that he actually needs help focusing, and so I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah. That was a
But
nice little thing.
I think another cool thing about it was how we come to find out that Iron Man is actually he kind of engineers this new suit for Spider-Man, and I thought that the suit was actually really cool, and again him using making his own web pellets and stuff, using his technology. I thought that was very cool. So when we finally get to see him in this major confrontation scene, literally us versus them, it was really great to see Spider-Man in action, and I was pretty pleased with it.
I thought the dialogue between Peter Parker and Tony Stark was just perfect. Like the banter, the humor of, a young Spider-Man as a kid, and then Tony as like, who is this kid? But he's impressed by him, but he's just kind of trying to get a feel for it. And it was just, I thought Tom Holland just did a great job, not just as Spider-Man, but as Peter Parker. And it kind of showed his intelligence. Like he's building all these computer things. Right. He made his webbing, and Tony's like, okay, this kid's legit.
Yeah, he was really kind of neurotic and kind of scatterbrained, and in that scene where they're all fighting each other, you can just see his total lack of experience compared with these guys that have been like, this isn't our first rodeo. We've saved the world a couple times. Yeah. I think Iron Man actually gets frustrated with Spider-Man a few times, which was funny.
Yeah, I like how it was a very like amateur Spider-Man. Like he wasn't used to being in a team. He's just kind of like does his own thing. He has no like formal training. He's just learning this stuff as he goes. And he's just thrown in here with all these guys. And he still does a really great job like taking out guys, but he also gets knocked on his butt a couple times, which I thought was really good because these other guys have been through, crazy, crazy stuff. And he's at the beginning. I also like Tom Holland because he is like a very young Spider-Man. I think that's a smart move for Marvel because it gives Marvel more
a little longevity with the character.
Little longevity with Spider-Man, which we need. And, Robert Downey Jr. is getting kind of old, so.
Got to pass the torch to somebody eventually. Can we talk a little bit about Marissa Tomei as Aunt May? What a great casting choice, in my opinion.
That was the youngest Aunt May I've ever seen. And I think Tony Stark said it best. Who's your hot aunt? You could tell that Spider-Man was clearly like, stop crushing on my aunt, you know? So that was pretty fun.
Well, that's all the time we have for this week's podcast. We're actually going to split it up into two because there's just a lot of craziness that we had to talk about. Jason, you're going to be on the next podcast, right?
I will be if you guys invite me.
Well, we already filmed it, so you're going to be on it.
Okay, cool.
But thanks for being on the podcast and the next one. Sam, thanks for being here.
It's great to be here.
Always happy to have you on the podcast.
It's nice.
All right, guys, that's all we have. If you like the video, give us a thumbs up. Check us out on the socials. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to this week's podcast. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, connect with us on the socials, and online at socialgeekscene.com.